Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The War on China. I am joined once again after a long hiatus by Mr. Mario Cavallo. Mario, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, friends. Welcome to the War on China, a very, very special edition show. Fernando, what do you have to say?
Yep. We are going to be talking about the five reasons that are driving China's zero COVID policy because there's a lot of talk out there about whether China should abandon it, should it work? I mean, can you live with COVID, yes or no? And there seems to be some cyclical management of COVID. Like when the world is locking down, China is enjoying a lot of freedom, and when the world is enjoying a lot of freedom, then China is locking down. So we need to explain why this is and make sure that people understand the information clearly, because there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of abuse of half-baked information by Western media. So that's what we want to do today. So some background information about COVID. Mario, would you give us a short explanation of what is taking place these days?
You bet. Worldwide, is COVID over yet? And the answer is absolutely not. Now, I'm going to say this very aggressively and without apology. If you want to be in denial that COVID is still serious, you're welcome to do that, okay? But you have to understand that if you're doing that, you're in denial, okay? The Chinese government is not in denial. That's point number one. Point number two, in the West, okay, because governments and people are in denial and are ready to move on and let it rip and all this other language that people use, okay, millions of people, I believe we're approaching 4 million people have died. And that's with a population of somewhere like 600 million people. If you compare that to the number of people who've died in China over the last 2 years and its population of 1.4 billion people, okay, 800 times more people have died in the West of COVID than in China. I don't know about you, but I call that a remarkable success, to be admired and to be studied and looked at, okay? In China, if the equivalent number of people had died as have died so far in the United States, which is fast approaching 1 billion people, multiply that by 5, which is the 5 times more people that are in population of people that are in China, that means by now, if China had handled it the same as the United States or the same as the United Kingdom and all the other European countries, here in China by now, already there would be 5 million deaths instead of 5,000 deaths. So, do you understand me? You're the one in the West who wants to criticize China. You're the one in the West who wants to be in denial, okay? This is a war on China. And I was reminded of this. The show that episodes that Fernando and I did, many episodes. Go back and watch them, folks, okay? Now we're back to it again. Besides the Ukraine war, besides that nightmare, which the United States is also every step of the way allowing and creating and escalating because they want war for their profits and all these other problems you have in the Western world that we don't have here in China. You know what? Because for the last 40 years, China has done nothing but rise up to the level of a superpower without firing one single bullet, without one single drone strike outside of its own borders or inside its own borders. Okay, a peaceful 40-year rise. And now China's got a zero COVID policy that for the last 2 years has done what, ladies and gentlemen? Saved the lives of
Millions
5
of
million
people.
people. Do you hear me? Okay, that's what we're going to talk about. And I want to tell you something right now. Okay, the first people to tell you that the Chinese government has failed in its zero COVID policy in Shanghai, where there's currently a crisis, you know who the first people to tell you they failed is? The Chinese government. They are devastated. They are in the news every day saying, our policy failed in Shanghai. We are devastated. We are devastated. We know it. We see it. We're responding to it. You understand my point here, Fernando?
I understand, and there's something that a lot of people don't understand, and kind of like I tweeted about this. Like the more they attack China in this particular point, the more it becomes a defense. They say like, oh, people cannot criticize the government in China. Oh, people cannot complain about the government in China. But what are they showing these
Baloney.
days on the media? Well, people complaining, people criticizing, people upset, and things actually getting resolved. So when you attack China on one side, that automatically becomes his best defense. Why are you seeing people complaining about the response in Shanghai? Because people can do it, because it's okay,
That's
because
right.
it's acceptable, because there's no problem with doing that. Now, here's another very important thing that people need to remember. When officials mess up, which is something that we see has happened in Shanghai, there is accountability. There are
Thank you.
people that are fired. There are people who are sanctioned. There are people who are punished and pay a price for their mistakes. This is seen as a failure. And, well, first, they need to catch up. And that's what's taking place. So what we saw taking place in Shanghai was basically, and there's another very important factor here to consider. When you lock down a city like Shanghai, that's 25 million people. Imagine that's half the population of my country. Imagine delivering food to 25 million people. Imagine the amount of work, the amount of logistics, the amount of, I don't know, stock and employees and volunteers that you need to coordinate day after day after day to make sure that everybody is fed and medications are delivered and think about tests, just medical tests, just medical teams. It's unbelievable. And the thing is that it's not only happening in Shanghai. There have been other outbreaks here and there. I talked about my experience here. We were locked down for about 11 days on top of the mountain where I am, but it's a minor thing. But places where the situation got out of control, and we're going to talk about that for a minute, is Shanghai, Jilin, different places around the country where
Just those.
the
No,
response was not
no,
as
that's it.
quick.
Shanghai. Just those two. Shanghai
Those two
failed.
places.
Jilin,
And that
Jilin failed.
automatically becomes a definition of China. So 25 million is this
Yeah.
is what's happening in China. Well, this is what's
Yeah.
happening in Shanghai, 25 million
What?
versus 1.4 billion people.
Thank you. Well,
Hmm.
what about all
Okay,
the?
but
What
let
about
us start.
the last 2 years of China? What about the last 2 years of China not failing? Right.
Hmm.
This is exactly my point. What about the last 2 years of China not failing? We don't have 5 million people dead. You do. We got
Hmm.
5,000
Well,
people dead. That's an amazing
let's
success.
start
And why are they not focusing?
let's start
Why are
talking
they not
about
focusing on that? Go ahead.
let's talk about the reasons why the zero COVID
Yeah.
policy is so important for China. So, number one, um, we're saying that Omicron is milder, but still a very serious situation. What's your take on this? Why is this a very
Yeah.
important reason?
Yes, and by the way, Fernando, I want to say to everyone, I'm so glad you were available to do this with me today. I this has been on my mind. I was like, look, I know very clearly, and I want to tell everyone today. The main point right here is the five main reasons why China is still maintaining a zero COVID policy. While it's going to be adjusting it a bit, but they are maintaining zero COVID. You think, oh, that's crazy, that's insane, blah 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 blah. Why exactly are they doing it? And I've spoken specifically and directly to Chinese government officials. I'm not going to tell you who they were, but I've spoken directly with them. I asked them. I said, what is going on? Why is this happening? I got the answers. I've done the research, and I'll tell you. Reason number one. Fernando, just prompt me on these as we go through. So you've asked me zero
Hmm.
number one. Okay. And here it
So
is.
Omicron is milder, but it's still very
Yeah,
serious. What does that mean for
right,
China?
right. So, what are the key factors driving zero COVID policy? Okay, China's zero COVID policy. Reason number one. Boom, here it is. I got my notes. I want to make any mistakes sharing this with you. The Chinese government knows it is absolutely not true that the Omicron BA2 variant is just the flu. Anybody out there who wants to try to say, oh, it's very mild, it's just like the flu, blah, blah, blah. This is completely untrue. Yes, it is presenting milder symptoms. It is definitely milder than the previous original COVID, and then even the Delta variant, as first noted when it appeared in South Africa. Oh, yes, the doctor in South Africa said, we noticed that the symptoms are milder. Yes, and that has remained consistently true. However, it's still not as mild, not even close. The death rate for current Omicron is still far higher. In fact, by the statistics, go look, 20 times higher than for the annual influenza or flu seasons each year. I'll give you the numbers real quick. Annual flu each year typically knocks out anywhere from 20 to 80,000 people. Okay. This year, deaths from COVID, again, 20 times higher than that. Do you understand? It's straight up. So if you want to ever listen to a person who says, oh, it's milder, it's like the flu, it's milder than the previous COVID, it's still 20 times. Oh, you want to be nice and say, oh, it's not that bad. Okay, only 10 times as bad as the annual flu. Okay. Anyone out there telling you otherwise is rationalizing opening up again and rationalizing this denial in their own mind. We notice from the medical statistics, the number of deaths, the total number of deaths, including the most recent outbreaks, for example, South Korea and in Hong Kong. That's reason number one. China saying, no, this is not over. This is still very serious. Boom. That's it, Fernando. Reason number one.
There's another very important issue, and a very important thing to remember is that there's not much information about long COVID, and that's reason number two. Long COVID is something that we're still learning about, and the government is very worried about this. There are people suffering from long COVID. I mean, Martin Jacques, for example, on Twitter is constantly reminding us that his son, David, has been suffering from long COVID, and it's a very debilitating condition. So it's a problem that's still there, and that you do not bring your guard down until you know exactly what you're dealing with. So Mario, tell us the audience, and inform me as well. Why is that a very important reason not to draw our zero COVID policy here in China?
That's right. Reason number two, okay, besides the idea of the death rate, and I want to also take a moment to send hats off to Anna Chen out of UK. She's a Chinese in the UK who's been having an incredibly hard time. She's incredibly smart, intelligent. She's done some amazing work. She pointed out to me most recently how, especially in the UK, they're noticing this. What? Long COVID symptoms. Reason number two. Omicron is still presenting severe long-term complications, what has become known as long COVID symptoms in many more people. This includes problems with the brain, thinking, strange kinds of onsets of dementia, okay? Immune system problems, okay? Ongoing, continuing lung problems, other types of immune joint chronic fatigue syndrome type of symptoms, all that is being attributed to long COVID. Annual flu doesn't do that. So, folks, come on. The fact is the fact. Many more people are suffering long-term because of this family of coronaviruses. And therefore, the healthcare system is noticing, taking up having to deal with all of these people. They are being presented in the hospitals. People are coming and presenting themselves. I got this problem, this problem, this problem. And the doctors are going,
long COVID.
Oh, wait a minute. This is not what happens after the flu. This is long COVID. So just because your country chooses to accept that more people are suffering and more people are dying doesn't mean that you're right and China is wrong. Reason number two, long COVID. China said, we still see long COVID as a serious problem. We're not clear about what it is yet. And that's China's reason number two for maintaining zero COVID.
Now, reason number three, it's a combination of things. You got to understand, people out there watching this video, people who are outside of China who don't understand this, is that there are a large number of people who have not gotten vaccinated, who cannot get vaccinated, or who do not want to be vaccinated.
That's not reason number three. That's not reason number three. Don't talk about that yet. That's reason number five. But don't jump the gun on me.
If you let COVID, this new variant, Omicron, go rampant in the country, the number of people that would be headed to the hospitals would overwhelm the healthcare system of China. So
Correct.
That's reason number three. What numbers do you have? What information do you have about this? I mean, this is a fact. I mean, one of the main reasons is, why did China build a clinic, a hospital in 10 days in 2020? Because the situation was so serious, because the number of places necessary to attend to all the population of China, no country would ever be able to do this. So it's extremely
That's right.
important for China to control these numbers and to keep the system that is functioning under control. And of course, there are makeshift places where people need to quarantine. There are makeshift places where people need to isolate, because just think about the population. Think about the size of the problem here. It's not a small little town or village in the UK, or somewhere in the middle of Milwaukee with 5,000 people, 10,000 people, where, I don't know, there's 20, 100 cases. If you go to any condominium, any residential area, there's at least 3,000 people living in just a square kilometer. Quite simple in a place like Shanghai, if not more. So
That's
imagine
right.
that density, that proximity. You cannot let it go rampant. But Mario, why don't you share a little bit more about this idea related to the
Yes.
number, the population, and how it affects the necessity for the COVID zero policy, Mario?
That's right. Reason number three. And Fernando, by the way, I didn't mean to sound, I apologize. I didn't mean to sound like I was cutting you off about the vaccine things, because of course, ultimately the vaccines are related to everything, right? No doubt about
Hmm.
that. But there's a very
Yeah.
special point about the vaccines, and that's our last point and our most important point, in fact. So anyway, back to the reason number three. Reason number three is because China has a huge population comparatively to any other country, the density of population, okay? And so it is, if it did just let the virus go, in comparison to, for example, the United States, five times more people would be getting severely sick and dying. Now, I kind of already said that to you, right? But
Hmm.
what you got to understand is China government admits, as good as their healthcare system is, and it's terrific. I've been using it for 22 years. It's efficient, it works extremely well, and it's not expensive. Okay. However, they know that because of the population, okay, the healthcare system would, if they let it go, like they're talking about in the West, all right, the system would definitely be overwhelmed. Okay. And mostly by massive numbers of elderly, because there is a lot of elderly population here in China, demographically speaking. So if you can just imagine how I'm saying this to you. Okay. I got my brother in Phoenix. Okay. I got Mario in Shanghai, and his family's really back in Bologna, Italy. Okay. You got people that you know who live in LA. Okay. Or Atlanta or Chicago. I mean, just look around at all the buildings and look around at all the places where everybody lives. And on average, everybody lives in a building that's 1 to 4 stories tall. Now, I'd like you to imagine the city of Phoenix, Arizona, the same people, the same city. Take the city of Phoenix, Arizona, and you look throughout the whole city. It's huge. It's massive. Stretches up into the desert, all the way to the north, halfway to Flagstaff now, south all the way out to Tempe. I mean, down into Mesa. I'm telling you, it's massive, right? Imagine if the entire area of Phoenix, instead of being condominiums that were 3 stories tall, were 30 stories tall. The whole thing. That's how many people are in every major city in places like Hong Kong and all the major cities of China. So you've got an enormous
Hmm.
density. The healthcare system would be overwhelmed if you let COVID run in this country the way you want to, and you are letting it run in the West. That is reason number three, and they know it.
Well, now we get into reason number four, which is a very important one, which has to do with alternative treatments or effective treatments that China does not have readily available to distribute to the population. So the
Yeah,
necessity, the need for some time to get those, to produce those, and to get them to the people. That's a very
exactly.
important reason. China's not ready yet with that. So let's talk about that for a second, Mario.
Yep, absolutely. Reason number four of stockpiling enough inventory of what we do know are effective treatments for COVID, for people who have COVID, okay? Whatever it might be, Omicron, Delta, whatever it was. Well, currently Omicron BA2, though it seems like there's other variants going to be coming down the line, folks. No matter
Mm,
what, China is in a position where they're now saying, well, let's just say that we do get a lot of people who have cases. Well, can we treat those people with known to date, known effective treatments? Folks, there's 2 known effective treatments, okay? Monoclonal antibodies and the Paxlovid pill, which is Pfizer's pill. I want to note China's working on either it's a generic version of that pill or a similar pill themselves that they're doing. Whether or not they end up making a deal with Pfizer, whatever it is, I'm not sure the detail on that. The point is, China's also saying, hey, well, look, if we had enough of what we know is effective, if we had enough stockpile of inventory of those, then we could start adjusting the policy. Because when people did get sick, and you say it's Mr. Mario in Shenyang or Mr. Fernando in down in Fujian where he is now, or my mother-in-law on the other side of town in Shenyang, or people that are in Shanghai, anywhere you are, you get sick from COVID, you're elderly, you're middle-aged, you're a kid, whatever it might be, we have treatment in the hospital. It's like now, when you go to the hospital now, or you go to see a doctor and you need penicillin, or you need what is it? Cepherdine. Yeah, Cepherdine. Okay. Right. You need Cepherdine. Is it available? You need penicillin antibiotics, or you need levofloxacin, right? Okay, floxacin antibiotics. Are they available? Absolutely. You need insulin? Are they available? Absolutely. You go to the hospital. Oh, you got COVID. We got monoclonal antibodies. We got the Pfizer pill. We got the Paxlovid pill here for you. We have treatment in the hospital. We have inventory in the hospital as readily available as all the common treatments available now, like I just mentioned, things like antibiotics, okay? So they have it yet, right? So they don't have enough inventories, known effective treatments, okay? So that when they do finally loosen up type policy, there may be many more serious cases, but they will have the medicine available to treat everyone. They need a few more months to build up that inventory and distribution of that inventory. Unlike America, okay, China treats all of its citizens equally, while people like President Trump and Joe Rogan, hey, good for them. They can go into the hospital and they can get themselves all pumped full of their fancy cocktails, okay, and which includes monoclonal antibodies and things like Paxlovid pill, which I think they're going to charge a fortune in the West, okay, because that's the medical system in the West, while common people, including, for example, my own mother who got COVID back in America. And you know what they gave her to treat it? Nothing. And I mean it. I mean it. Okay. They said, go home, go home. Just go home. You'll be okay. Unless something serious. I mean, I'm serious. Okay. So in the West, they didn't even offer these treatments. So China is in zero COVID policy for reason number 4. As I'm telling you, they still don't have enough inventory to be able to treat everybody. They still need to stock up on those inventories of these effective treatments. Once they have that, then they can say, now we have treatments for people. We can start considering opening up and loosening up the policy a little bit more. That's it, Fernando. Reason number 4.
The best way to explain this to people is, remember at the beginning of COVID when many countries did not have PPE? How everybody was scrambling around the world to find some masks, N95, how everybody was like, what do we do? Where do we get this? Where do we get hazmat suits? Where do we get covers? Where do we get? Everybody was running to get something. Well, it's the same situation here. They're not ready to let people run free and this virus just run amok in the country because they don't have the way to control it. They don't have the way to fight it yet. So it's right. What's happening right now. Now, reason number 5, before we talk about that, I want to show a very short video because the way media is talking about this is deliberately misguided, is deliberately missing out very important information that we want to give you. So let me share this very short video with you and we can comment on it, okay?
Panic. I really don't. Really don't. But have you ever wondered why China has the most extreme reactions to COVID in the world? Like, I just found myself wondering this. Every country in the world, every other country is now like, it's time to move on. We're done. COVID is finished. And China's like, no, it is not time to move on. And that has me wondering, what do they know that we don't?
So let's tell him, what is it that the question should be? Trevor Noah is asking there, what does China know that America doesn't? What does China know that the West doesn't know? And that's not the right question. The right question is, what does China care about that the West doesn't? And the answer is very simple: the lives of people. So let's talk about point number 5, which has to do with the people that are not vaccinated, Mario.
Yes, that's right. Reason number 5, and folks, I specifically left this for last because without a doubt, this is the most important reason. It's an enormous influence as to what's driving zero COVID policy. It's going to surprise a lot of you. I've saved the final reason for last. It's by far the biggest reason and the biggest problem, and it is this. 80% or 88% approximately of China's population is vaccinated. You think, wow, that's pretty good. But it's that 12% who are still not vaccinated. And if you ask me how many people that is of a population of 1.4 billion, so you're talking about like
150.
150 billion people, that's almost half the population of the United States. And the majority of those people who are not vaccinated, somewhere around like 90 million. And this is really annoying, but it's the truth, is the elderly. I know this is unbelievable. The majority of elderly in China are still not vaccinated. And that includes people that I know. I don't want to go into the details, okay? The attitude, part of the reason for this is the attitude of doctors here has been, if you're old and you're already weak with some pre-existing conditions, oh, it's not a good idea to get the vaccine. So the medical system itself is part of the problem as to why this has happened, because this is not the case in the West. In the West, it's like, hey, you're elderly, you're weak, you're the first one who needs to be vaccinated. Here, it's just the opposite. And that's even with the more safe, because, you know, mRNA has serious problems with vax-related symptoms, very serious problems. Everybody knows that. Okay, you got athletes dropping dead all over the world. You got all kinds of problems with mRNA. I never wanted that damn vaccine. I always wanted to just get the Chinese traditional dead cell Sinovac vaccine, which is what I got. And I'm happy with that. Okay, so that vaccine is very safe. Okay, in terms of the symptoms and reactions. Okay, so even with that being the case, all right, the doctors here were still saying to the nice old lady and the old guy, oh, you're weak, you got this problem and that problem, you're getting old, and oh no, you already got some problems, so you shouldn't get vaccinated. I think this is a disastrous mistake, and they're not making it. They haven't made it up till now mandatory. Okay, so this is very controversial. Vaccines are not till now ever been made mandatory for any age group in China. So now many are thinking, well, we're locking down all the vaccinated mainstream younger people to protect the old unvaccinated parents. Okay, so this is an enormous issue, and I have to say, it's confirmed with what happened in Hong Kong. Indeed, the nasty Hong Kong outbreak has proven this problem to be true. 90% of the deaths in Hong Kong, and that situation has been a disaster like Shanghai is happening now, 90% of the deaths in Hong Kong have been exactly in this category. Reason number 5, unvaccinated elderly. Okay. If you are vaccinated with 2 or best 3 boosters, you're doing much, much better. And these are the facts. Fernando.
I want to perhaps round up today's video by talking about the way media is portraying the situation in Shanghai, particularly.
It's
there
disgraceful.
Is a level,
it's disgraceful.
There's a level of enjoyment. There's a level of pleasure in presenting a difficult situation in China. I've always told people on Twitter, not always, but several times over the last few days, be mindful of what you post on social media, because you know that will be used against China. Whatever video, whatever photo that you are seeing, you're trying to share what's going on around you. And the West media, they're going to take that and turn it around. So I want to show you this particular tweet by Stephen McDonald.
Oh, that guy?
You know, that BBC guy, right?
Yeah.
So he's saying, hey, this is what happens to those in Shanghai who try to resist going to centralized COVID isolation. And there is, well, people in hazmat suit going into an apartment and bringing a person into this particular isolation center. Now, here's the thing. Does this happen? Yes. Does this happen in any other country? Yes. But
thank you.
Does this happen to every person in Shanghai? No. And here's a very, very important thing. This is what Stephen McDonald, says several hours afterwards. People should bear in mind that this is a rather extreme example, and we don't know all the circumstances leading up to the police action. Now,
Again,
please tell me, please tell me what part of this tweet is new information to Stephen McDonald. What part of this didn't he know when he put out the first tweet? What part of this was new information that he should have put on the first tweet? He didn't. He deliberately wrote that tweet in a way that would cause misinformation, that would cause people to think that this is happening all over Shanghai, that 25 million people are being oppressed, that 25 million people are being mistreated, that 25... This is what he's done with that first tweet. And by waiting several hours before saying, hey, this is just an extreme case, he knows that the damage is done. He knows that he's already done what he wanted to do, which was to paint China in a negative light. I also retweeted a video from this, there's a cameraman from BBC, Lawrence something, where there's a guy in hazmat suit with a megaphone, keeping his distance from an elderly man that wandering the streets, telling him like, hey, go back to your home, go back to your home, go back to your home. The poor guy is doing his job. The poor guy is actually risking his life. The poor guy is working probably overtime. Because imagine how difficult it is to feed all the 25 million people in Shanghai. How difficult it is to make sure that all the volunteers that are keeping all those people alive and taking care of them, to keep them hydrated, to keep them fed, to keep them well rested. It's a huge amount of pressure to all the people. So this guy takes this video and makes it look like, oh, it's an abuse of power. The guy is doing his job and he's risking his health, his life away from family to keep everybody safe. And that's what media does. So this is what I say. Just be mindful that whatever you put out there, you should know that it can be and it will be used against China by Western media and internet pundits. That's what I wanted to say. Mario, do you have any comments about this?
I do, and actually, I'm ready. I'm ready to wrap it up. And here's what I want to tell you. You know, Shanghai. Okay, my purpose of this video was to bring to you with Fernando tonight the five main reasons which absolutely explain to you, to all the world, why COVID. It's reasonable and it makes perfect sense for a lot of very, very good reasons. And for the last 2 years, it's been amazingly successful to the degree that the West doesn't even want you to realize, by comparison, how successful it's been. Because 5 million of their people are dead, all of you in the West, while China's only had 5,000 deaths. Okay, so frankly, they're embarrassed by China's amazing success. However, Shanghai now has had a big failure. Okay, and that's really unfortunate. And even in that tragedy, Western media, what are they doing? And the online sphere of insanity, they revel in it and they pile on and they dog whistle in it. It's disgraceful. Nothing's changed. It's the same that Western media has been every step of the way with all kinds of China things. It's a disgrace and I'm disgusted by it. The fact of the matter is this: China is the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, and civil country on planet Earth by far. That's the truth. That's the reality. And I thank you, everyone, for your time joining us, myself and Fernando, this evening. That's it, Fernando. That's
all right,
everything
guys.
I wanted
That's
to say.
it. Thank you so much. Until